Your people will all leave this event safely. I expect the same from you.
All children deserve liberty. They do not deserve Moms for Liberty. They deserve their liberty. And I want to thank everyone here for representing that in a quiet, respectful, mature manner. We're not inciting.
And that is big money. All they see when they look at your children is money. They want to make your kids lifelong medical patients so that they can rake in the dollars. Do not let them do this. It is egregious. Not only will you pay the price, but eventually your child will pay that price for the rest of their lives.
You are destroying our next generation. What you do is destroy America. Make Americans have no next generation. You are evil.
So this is as long as it's
Representative Walsh, could you come down? I wasn't going to introduce him that way, but he was standing there and I need him to come right now because he only has a few minutes. He was going to be later in the program. You may not know this. I will. Thank you. I will. Jim Walsh is the only legislator that dropped a bill this session that would protect children from irreversible procedures. You probably don't know that because the Democrats didn't even let it have a hearing. That was one of hundreds of bills that Republicans dropped that never even got a hearing. And so we did not want this rally to be a political event, and it is truly about parents supporting children and citizens supporting children. But I asked Jim if he would come speak today because Jim has really been on the front lines of this issue, and as you all probably know, many issues in the state this session. And I wanted him to talk about particularly Senate Bill 5599, which goes along with House Bill 1469, which is really, well, weird.
You need to stand away from the speakers. Come this way. Come back.
Hi.
There you go.
So I want him to talk specifically about those bills and just kind of, as you see it, and where things are headed.
Okay, good.
Thanks for being here.
Of course. Well, give Julie a hand for setting this all up. The first thing to know is that parents' rights are constitutional rights. Now, what the U.S. Supreme Court has said, and they've said it repeatedly, is that parental rights are part of due process rights, and they stem from the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. These are foundational rights. They are not second-class rights. They cannot be eroded or undermined or impaired by statutory law or anything else. Your right to the control of the upbringing and education of your children and grandchildren cannot be impaired. And you will hear a lot of spin that these statutory law bills are not meant to impair your foundational rights. But that's spin. What the current crop of legislation in this state does, and there are several individual bills that are part of it, is they chip away in narrow ways at your foundational rights to raise your children and grandchildren, to keep your families together as you see fit. And we don't want that chipping away. We will oppose that chipping away. We will stand for parental rights and families and the ultimate well-being and welfare of the children of this state. One of the fundamental flaws in the logic supporting a lot of these recent bills is this idea that if parents and families don't affirm every whim that a minor child has, they are being abusive. This is false. Parental love, parental support often means saying no with love. This is how we raise our children. This is how we make them strong and healthy adults. The other false presumption of these bad bills is that the state, that bureaucrats know better for your children than you know. That is false. State bureaucrats do not know. You know. And what I promise you is those of us who care about constitutional rights, those of us who care about the traditions of this state, will defend your right to raise your children and your families as you choose. Not as a bureaucrat, not as a state agency tells you you must, but as you, in your judgment, choose. That is pro-choice. So God bless you all. Stay strong and stay focused. Remember, Article 1, Section 1 of the state constitution, all political power is inherent in the people. Governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. And those governments exist to protect and maintain individual rights. That's your right to raise your children as you see fit. Don't listen to a bureaucrat. Don't listen to an agency. Don't listen to an elected official. You make that choice. God bless you all.
This is about the fact that children cannot make irreversible decisions on their own. We don't let them smoke. We don't let them get tattoos. We don't let them drive and until we have proven that they can do so safely. And yet we're letting them decide life-altering decisions at the age of 12. This is insane. Absolutely insane. Now, I want to impart to you the importance of speech on this issue. People like them will tell you that simply saying these things is violence. That is not true. Just because I disagree with you, and I'm sure there are people in this audience that I disagree with right now, that does not mean that you have committed violence against me. What they are doing is they are setting up a scenario in which, when you disagree, they then think that that gives them the right to defend themselves by attacking you with physical violence.
Amen!
That is not appropriate. That is not how we behave in a civil society. What schools are pushing in the name of inclusivity is disingenuous. It is not inclusive to tell children that they belong in different categories. You need to let your children be children. You need to let them live the way they're going to live without trying to label them. Any adult who tells your child that they have the opposite gender or inquires about their sexual interests when they shouldn't have them yet is disgusting. There is no way to talk about these topics in a child-friendly way. They are complicated for adults. We could sit here for hours talking about these issues, trying to find a middle ground on how to work around these issues. It's complicated for adults. The only way to discuss this with children is to oversimplify it in the most gross context. You tell a child that they can just change their gender by just saying that they are. You are teaching them that reality doesn't exist. Nothing is more fundamentally harmful for a child than taking away their ability to conceptualize the world. They need to be able to order the world in order to just understand it. When you take that away, they're confused, and that confusion leads to anxiety and depression, rates of suicide. We've seen it all. Puberty blockers are not safe or reversible. There are multiple issues with puberty blockers. One of the most well-known is bone loss, severe and detrimental bone loss, at a higher rate than osteoporosis.
Thank you so much.
That is a horrible thing to do to a child. It is unconscionable.
So, my story begins. It's a story about what
She is correct. Pulmonary embolism is another side effect of some of these medications.
children. This is what they actually
Now,
do to their children.
one of the less known things is that if you are of an age where you have not yet achieved sexual function, and there are children in the audience, so I will try to be vague,
When I was young,
then you will not achieve it if you've been on puberty blockers. That is around 80 to 90%. And children who have gone any younger than 10 have not had any sexual function. Jazz James is an example of this. If you have not had sexual function before you get on these medications, you likely never will have it. That is so egregiously horrible that I can't believe that the people that advocate for sex positivity would support this. It is egregious what they are doing to our children. It is egregious that they are lying to you the way that they are. And it is even worse that the medical community is being as obtuse as they are. They hide the facts from you. They distort the statistics. And they lie about how likely it is that you will face complications from these procedures. They leave it to parents to dig for themselves when they should be upfront with you to begin with. We need to carry this load. So here's what all of you can do, okay? I want you to reach out to the county. We've got some county representation here from all over the state. Reach out to the chapter closest to you. Get engaged. Their website. They should get up. Respectfully.
Whether it's a woman or not.
I am now an FDS mover. They are refusing. So she wants to sit here and
pretty transparent, right? How many of them actually had broken through into here? Just based off of what you've seen, I mean.
I don't have that information.
Okay, well, I just wanted to ask then, compared to that, and we had like maybe 3 or 4 people, they didn't seem to be in there for very long, but they were a lot longer in here. Was that just because they were more numerous, or just because they had more security detail in compliance with you guys?
I don't know what you're asking.
Because you had them a lot longer in here, and it took a little longer to respond. I just wanted to know, because Jonathan Choe is already renowned, but he was being blocked off a lot quicker and just couldn't do anything for that, so I just found it curious that they were left in here for a lot longer.
I don't know who that is.
We are the representatives and the preservers of this great union, and they are coming for your children. When they say divide and conquer, it is not a euphemism, it is their damn strategy. So your job is to see through the lies, and you join hands with each other. USA! 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 We will not be intimidated. We will not bend the knee.
Hey John, I did want to get you real quick, so I was talking with them, but they didn't seem to want to acknowledge you, but then they said Johnny's chasing them. So I found that kind of interesting. What was your reaction to being barred from there and from the bicyclist police denying you entry, but then to the fact they didn't even seem to know who you are when asked about why they let the counter demonstration onto the other side?
Well, in fairness, I finally showed them my ID, and they asked me to get permission. But yeah, I mean it's clearly uncoordinated right now. I feel bad actually for WSP and law enforcement. We're just trying to keep the peace. I'm 100% in support of WSP and the men and women doing their job, but yeah, I think they're just trying to separate everybody. I'm just trying to cover this as an independent journalist. You clearly have one side that is pro-parents, and you've got another side that's pro-trans, and I'm just trying to get perspective from both sides. And clearly, the folks over there don't want me covering this, or any independent journalist really, unless you're on their side. I'm not on anyone's side, so I got the umbrella treatment. You got Antifa there, you got far left activists there, so I'm just trying to do my job, brother.
Very quickly about the laws in Washington and that we would not be able to keep her in the state and get her well. I have no idea what that day would look like. It's like 7 hours standing out on the street outside of that youth shelter. We went to the door to get her, and they wouldn't let us have her. So I called my friend who was on the Seattle Police Department force at the time, and he said, "You need to call 911. So they sent a team of officers out, which was kind of unexpected because it's 2021 and they've defunded the police and there really aren't that many to go around. So I wasn't sure who, if anyone, would show up. But 2 officers came and they happened to know my friend and had been briefed on the situation, and they went up to the shelter and spoke with the staff, and about an hour later they came back to the street where my husband and my best friend and my son were waiting. And they said, "They're essentially holding your daughter hostage and we're going to have to call backup." It was 8 officers in total that it took to get my child out. They had to break and enter the building. They had barricaded my daughter into a room in the back of the shelter. She had to be basically carried out by 3 police officers. She was not in great shape when she came out. I, to this day, don't know all the details of what happened to her in there, but as you can imagine, those 10 days inflicted a great deal of trauma on my daughter.
And this last summer,
and greatly compounded the trauma that she had before she went in.
Is so appalling. And in my little town,
my daughter spent 19 months outside of the state of Washington
to our Pride Parade that was being
because I couldn't bring her back.
Kids in my community
and get her the care that she needs and be able to make the decisions for my 14-year-old child who is in a mental health crisis.
To say absolutely not.
What this bill does is it allows kids to essentially, they can go to school one day and there could be an activist teacher in their school that tells your daughter that maybe she actually is a boy because maybe she has short hair and she wears boy clothes and she just feels funky in her body because what girl at 14 years old doesn't feel funky in her body? And they can convince her that she is a boy. So then she requests gender-affirming care. And she goes off to a host home or a youth shelter that have been infiltrated. I'm sure there used to be good people in social work and in psychological services, but they have been infiltrated with socialists, people that want to harm your children. I spent the last 2 years telling this story about what happened to my daughter, trying to wake up parents. And parents will hear my story and they're like, that'll never happen to my kid. My kid and I have a really good relationship. I dropped my kid off at church, you guys. It wasn't that we didn't have a good relationship. When a kid is in a mental health crisis, when a kid is being influenced by nefarious adults, groomers, pedophiles, whatever you want to call it, people with an evil agenda, they will be easy to manipulate and they go after the vulnerable children, the children on the spectrum, the children that have special needs. They target those vulnerable kids. They don't target the strong kids, the homeschool kids that have been, and I'm not saying kids that aren't homeschooled aren't strong, but you understand what I'm saying, kids that have roots with their family, where they have strong core values, and that's what these legislators don't want. They don't want your kids to have strong core values. They don't want patriotism and Christianity and these things that really give kids a strong foundation. They don't want that. We need to start waking up our friends. We need people to understand the agenda. We need them to understand that these aren't dumb people that just don't know what they're doing. They very much know what they're doing. And they're going to continue to do it until the government is in charge of your kids fully 100%. That is the end goal.
And this is why we do it.
So, yeah, that is...
I did run for Congress against Kim Schreier in District 8. And I also wrote the front page article of the current Flame newspaper. Now I know they were circulating here. I suggest everyone pick up a copy. There we go. It's called First Do No Harm. It's about detransitioners and what's being done to our kids, and it is a must-read article. So please pick up a copy. Pick up a bunch of copies. Give them to your friends, your family, and your neighbors. We need to get this word out. Everyone needs to know. And this paper is one of the few that allows us, with our conservative voices, to be able to tell the truth, as we all know. But I'm here because I'm a father. And Jen and I, it's my partner, Jen, we're parents of 3 14-year-olds, 1 daughter and 2 sons, and you can imagine how things are around our house. It's pretty incredible. But I want to tell you a story about what happened to one of our kids, and the event that changed everything for me, and it's really the reason I won, and it's the thing more than anything that woke me up and made me realize what is happening in our country. 5 years ago, we lived in Seattle. We still lived in Seattle. And a teacher and a psychologist in Seattle Public Schools one day announced that one of our 8-year-old sons was a girl. And this incredible pronouncement came completely out of left field and was based on nothing more than our son being a smart, sensitive child, innocently mentioning that he sometimes didn't feel like all the other boys. And if they had bothered to ask our son any real questions, they would have realized that what he meant was he's not athletic. He wasn't athletic. And he sometimes felt left out in the playing field and the playground. But they never bothered to do this, no. Instead, though he had displayed absolutely no signs of gender dysphoria, before or since, these so-called educators pounced on him and came in pronouns ablazing. And without our knowledge, they selected a new name for him, a girl's name. And they told him that they were going to have a party with cake and balloons the next day to celebrate his new name. Absolutely sickening. And when Jen was sitting with our son, these people told her there was no middle ground. That either she went along with this insanity and helped our son transition, or he would be ruined for the rest of his life.
Suicide is a huge issue, especially for you.
Well, we knew three things immediately. First, these people were completely insane. These people are completely insane. And we knew they could not be trusted with our child, and we knew he would never go back to that school. But I do have to say there was one thing those freaks were right about. And that is, when it comes to protecting our children, there is no middle ground. There is no middle ground with people who pretend to be compassionate ones, even as they actively destroy the bodies and futures of our vulnerable kids. There is no middle ground with radicals who believe that our state should have more power than our parents. There is no middle ground with people who think skyrocketing rates of gender and sexual confusion is totally normal, and that indoctrination and social contagion is a conspiracy theory. There is no middle ground with the idea that some people responsible here for drug addiction and homelessness in our state think they can protect children better than we, their parents, can. There is no middle ground. There is no middle ground with big med and big pharma who refuse us access to safe and effective drugs to treat COVID because of a lack of double-blind studies, but who are now raking in billions of dollars injecting kids with off-label drugs and cutting off their genitals of mentally ill children without a single long-term study of safety or efficacy. There is no middle ground with these manipulative assholes who want us to believe that in order to protect one child from an abusive home, the safety of every single one of our children must be sacrificed. No, there is no middle ground with an education system that forced our kids in front of computer screens for over a year, knowing damn well that it would only lead to irrecoverable learning loss, skyrocketing loneliness, mental illness, and suicide. There is no middle ground.
Hey, everybody be safe. I don't know what this is about, but we had a violent attack.
To think that loudly fighting against the sexualization, radicalization, and utilization of our kids is a losing issue with voters, and who only bother to speak up and show up when they are shamed into it. There is no middle ground.
Hey, folks, would you please walk away?
No middle ground.
You almost knocked me down. I'm 66 years old. I don't get up when I get knocked down. Please walk away.
So what exactly did happen over there?
Frankly, I have no idea. So as I'm telling my audience, there was some kind of a swarm of activity. Police kind of like ran into something, but like as soon as I got there were people trying to block me with umbrellas, so it was hard for me to see.
It looked like they were playing capture the flag over there, because it looked like a rod-like object before it was all obscured.
To be honest, I'm not even sure if there was someone against them. I literally have no idea.
Came back over and they were like, we don't know what happened.
Yeah, so all of this, there's just a flurry of attacks.
Well, to be fair, the cops are gaslighting, because I asked them who Jonathan was when he couldn't go in there, but they allowed them here. So I think they're intentionally in the dark, unless it's on their end.
Have you listened to anything with their I don't know.
Not to celebritize, but just bringing up the fact they then, when John went over there to cover as they were in front of the legislators going back in, they said, oh, Johnny's on the move. And then I asked them, who's Johnny? The same guys who literally told me, who's Jonathan Choe, when I asked them why he was barred from going in.
Yeah, I have no idea. I tried to just document everything.
we can together mobilize and tell people that we are very much against this. I work in Washington State for Turning Point USA. I also work in Oregon, and I have a student in Oregon who was starting her first year in high school. And she was very afraid because, you know, she comes from a conservative Christian background, and she was afraid that her ideas wouldn't be heard. But thankfully she did reach out to Turning Point USA, and I did start a chapter with her. It has about 4 other students in it. And guess what? They're actually telling other people about the value that they were raised with. Strong American Christian conservative values. And that's why and that can be and all of us can relate to that. If you're alone, even if you're a grown adult, if you're alone and you feel like you're the only one and you're going to stand up against that crowd, you're not going to feel really confident. But this is when we mobilize. And this is when we mobilize. So if we have more sane people in one room, we can fight against mental illness from prevailing and taking over teachers. And we can fight and knock activists out of the classroom. And maybe bring back in teachers that want to impart truth and actual knowledge back into the classroom.
But I was not allowed as a survivor mother to gift that cautious knowledge to my eldest. And I sit in the room and pray she will survive whatever's inside of her, so I can see her beautiful face heading out my driveway once more. I wish I could take the controversial shot out of her and put it in my body, because I love Mother, and I would do that. I'm not sure any other adult in the state would say the same thing. The irony of these bills combined and the order in which you choose to sign the bills is not lost on the few of us left with common sense. You have shown us your priorities. You are not shielding children in any form that we ask you to. The only thing you are doing is continuing to shield those who would abuse them and completely abolishing parental rights while simultaneously ignoring adult survivors of child abuse with your statute of limitations for them. But the death penalty for abusers is now off the table entirely.
This is uncharted territory. There is little science or medical knowledge around treating people facing the long-term consequences of puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and disfiguring plastic surgeries. There is a growing community of detransitioners whose stories are heartbreaking. They are medical patients for life, often in pain. Their regret can be high. They become suicidal. Studies are showing suicides peak 7 years after transition. Once the gender euphoria wears off and the glitter is tarnished, they wish someone would have stopped them. I have a message to the young people here today, and it is not one of hate, but one of extreme love. You are perfect as you are. You do not need a synthetic sexual identity that leaves you dependent on Big Pharma. You are perfect as you are.
If our forefathers hadn't fought the way that they fought, we wouldn't have this country today. And so we are laying the groundwork today for generations to come. We won't see maybe the fruits of our labor. And that's okay. We've gotten so used to instant gratification. We may not have that in this case, but we can look at grandchildren and great-grandchildren all the way down the line. We are setting things up for them to protect them. So get in the fight. Check out Moms for Liberty, Gays Against Groomers, Conservative Ladies of Washington. And if you do leave Washington, we launched a national platform, Conservative Ladies of America, in November, so you can join us from wherever you are in the country. Thank you for coming. Be safe and stick with buddies. Read the bill. I've been telling everybody to read the bill for like the last 3 months. Yes, I've been beating the drum. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, before everybody gets out of here today, I want to remind everybody of something that happened today, especially any of the legislators that are in this building right now. Everybody remember the two people that came over here to try to make a little scene?
Yes, I got a video.
Do you know who tapped him on the shoulder and come over to do it? Alex Ramel.
Who's that?
You know why I know that? Because I had people embedded over there dressed up like them. So I want you to think about hypocrisy. Alex Ramel is an elected official here in Washington. He's one of the reps. He was appointed in 2020 and then won the election in 2022. But he was the main sponsor of House Bill 1333, which wanted to declare my organization a terrorist organization. Pause for a second. I know, buddy, I love you too. So if I'm the terrorist, young man, why did he take two people on the shoulder to come over here and start problems? God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. Let's have a big note. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Give a cheer as loud as you can.
That it was a congressional man who had actually been responsible for tapping the one or the couple into doing that. Actually, I was going to follow up on that. I asked the bicyclist police when they were barring Jonathan from going in there.
Oh yeah, Choe.
So I was going to say, I'd asked them, so why were they barring him? And they said who. But then as soon as I was following around the loop there, they basically said Johnny's on the move. And to which I pretty much had asked them, who's this Johnny then you're talking about?
Who they're talking about? They're talking about Choe, man. I have Jonathan Choe. He's a great journalist that reports very accurately. He won't write a hero story for my side or anything, but he's the real deal. Thank you, brother, for coming in. Appreciate it.
See you at the next whatever. So tomorrow I'm not going to go pick up garbage because
I'm not going to pick up.
I've been the whole day doing this and so.
Yeah, most of our extremist activities have to do a lot with veteran outreach and roadside pickups. Like we do a bunch of adopt the highway and stuff. Well, nothing says terrorists like picking up garbage on the side of the street. So that representative's name was Alex Ramel. He was the prime sponsor of House Bill 1333 to have my organization declared a terrorist organization. I just want the hypocrisy called out that he is the man that tapped two people to come over here and start a fight. You'll never find my organization doing that. We're not looking for a fight. We're looking to prevent fights. And it is what it is, man. So.
And I guess the take is, what was your take on the police themselves? They seem to be the local PD, the bicyclist ones.
Yes.
So when they actually didn't acknowledge Choe, but they kind of dragged their feet on actually responding to the other side, wherein they were quick on that other one. How's your take on that? They're prioritizing.
Police right now have been so de-toothed and castrated, and they are subject to Google reviews and almost like Yelp reviews. They're so upset because if they do anything to upset this side, that's the social media generation over there. They will be filing complaints with the Office of Accountability. They'll be filing complaints with the attorney, what is that called? Office of Accountability, Internal Affairs, and they can make their life as a police officer very difficult. So what we do see happening, like what we saw happen in the chop zone, Chaz, when that happened, you have to remember police completely stood down. One person was killed, one person was shot, and a known felon, Raz Simone, was handing out semi-automatic weapons in the street to the occupiers. Seattle PD did nothing. I have lots of friends that are Seattle PD, but they all report the same thing. We can't do our jobs or we can't feed our families. You guys are on your own. I'm like, well, good. That's good thing I'm a 3%er then, because I won't be calling you, bud.
No,
yeah.
right, exactly. We'll be calling.
So on that side, Jonathan Choe was barred, and apparently from hearing from Eric Rhodes, as well as from others, it looked like he was going through demarcation, but they allowed agitators to be tapped from a congressperson over here. The reason I bring that up is it seems they're giving deference because when asked, the bicyclist PD that had basically helped bar Choe had then decided to acknowledge him when they told me that they didn't know who he was, thus it was demarcation of him. What's your take on that, and them taking at least 7 minutes to thus concurrently respond to anyone disruptive on this side?
My take on that is that Jonathan is an extremely talented and successful journalist, and if he were to be successful in talking and reporting on both sides of this issue, it would be very credible, it would get a lot of attention, and I don't think they want both sides to be told. I think they want to control the narrative.
Okay.
That would be my take.
Jonathan Choe was actually barred, and the police on that side, the bicyclist police, had claimed they didn't even know who he was. Yet when they were following him on this side, when going on the other end to talk with the Congress people, they said Jonathan Choe's on the loot, isn't in pursuit or so. So they clearly knew him, and they said, and Eric had said that it was a part of demarcation of him because as a journalist they had tags on him but were gaslighting knowing him. Mentioning that, there were people that were disrupting on this and for 7 minutes at least. What is your take on that they were quick to dismiss Jonathan by claiming they don't know who he was, but going on that side to bar him, but yet allowing people for at least 7 minutes or around there to disrupt on this end?
Well, I do my best to support security and police. I think they have a very hard job to do. And my guess is that they were more aggressive about keeping people out over there because they know they would cause more trouble. People on this side were really peaceful, non-aggressive. The only disturbance was when some other people came over here, at least from what I saw. Everyone was really peaceful. That crowd will be aggressive, and so they wanted Jonathan out of there because they don't want any violence to happen. So it was, that's my guess. That's my guess, that they were more aggressive because they know that the people on the left will be more aggressive. And I mean, we saw some commotion, and we see the threats. So that would be my guess.